guys, so it's been a hot minute since I've actually recorded a video or uploaded anything. The world's been still weird, obviously, and in the UK we're having lockdown. Not really sure what's going on, so I've just been trying to roll with it. But I haven't actually really uploaded or filmed or anything since probably like October. I kind of took like a break. I think everyone at the minute is having a bit of a creativity kind of brain timeout, let's just call it, because everything's just been so odd for the past year. So I thought I'd come back filming some videos with something a little bit lighter and just easier and get me used to it, because my social interaction with people or doing things online has been very minimal. Let's just say that. So because the only things, well, in the UK anyway, we can do is sort of go for a walk, and not been that great weather for a walk at the moment. We're just coming out of winter and going into spring. So I've been mainly sitting inside, playing games, watching a lot of TV and eating food and not moving a lot, which isn't great for your mental health. I do enjoy it, but then too much of a good thing can sometimes get a bit monotonous. So one thing I really did enjoy to try and like, I don't know, whether if I do commute to work or anything, or if I go out for a walk, I love listening to podcasts. I'm actually kind of late on the bandwagon with podcasts. I only actually started listening to them like maybe this time last year. I used to listen to like music and stuff, and I just never really listened to them, and I have no idea why. Now I'm regretting it. So I mainly listen to podcasts on Spotify, but I think you can do it on all the other kind of apps on iPhones and Androids and all that stuff. And they've literally been a lifesaver, because when you're having not a lot of communication with people, sometimes listening to a podcast kind of feels like you're having some sort of like social interaction. I know you're not, but it's kind of like you're listening into a conversation, and it makes you feel less like in your head. So I thought I would share with you some podcasts that I've really been loving for the past like year or so. So if you wanted to find a new podcast and you want to add them to your list, then I will leave all the links down below so you can check them out, and if they've got any social media as well, like YouTube channels and stuff like that. There's hundreds of podcasts, so obviously there's always something that you're gonna find which you're probably gonna enjoy. I have quite a range of interests, so a lot of the podcasts that I'm gonna like share and stuff are very varied in subject topics. So we'll start with true crime. So if you are a true crime lover like me and you love watching true crime documentaries on Netflix or on YouTube, there's a lot of true crime YouTubers now. There's also podcasts, and it's actually one of the first podcasts I started listening to. So the first one I started listening to was called My Favorite Murder. They have obviously blown up. They are a very big podcast and are very well known with a lot of true crime lovers. So My Favorite Murder is a true crime podcast hosted by Georgia and Karen. They basically go over any solved or unsolved cases of true crime. Obviously a lot of them are murders, so it is a bit of a dark subject, so if you're not into that kind of thing, I wouldn't recommend it, but it is very interesting. I love anything that's kind of like makes you think, and it's about like, I just love true crime and like finding out what happened, because it's kind of like a story going through the case and their opinions on it. It's really interesting. So if you do like watching documentaries and stuff like that and it's not very triggering to you, then I really highly recommend it. And they do have some comedy elements in it when they're just having their general conversations and everything, so it's not as kind of a bit dark and a bit gloomy, because obviously it could be a bit much. So they make a lot of like jokes together about other things, not making light of the cases at all, but just to try and make it be like an awareness thing about being safe and kind of having some humour. And I think the phrase is like, stay sexy and don't get murdered. It's a great podcast. I really highly recommend. So if you're a fan of My Favorite Murder or any true crime or paranormal podcasts, this is a combination. And That's Why We Drink is a podcast which is basically true crime, similar to My Favorite Murder, but they also throw a paranormal element into it. So there will be a true crime story at the start or near the end, and then they'll have a paranormal one, and sometimes they'll have like readers' stories and stuff like that. And I am a sucker for paranormal and ghosts. I just love that stuff. I mean, it's terrifying when it happens to you, but I love horror films and I love watching anything about like paranormal activity. I used to watch Most Haunted a lot when I was a kid with my mum. So hearing like the ghost stories, a lot of them are either personal experiences, readers' stories, or they're around like famous objects. If you've watched any of like the Conjuring series and stuff like that, they'll kind of go into more of the actual real story based on those, what the films were based on. so it's really interesting. Maybe don't listen to it at night or too much on your own, because it can make you a little bit paranoid and feel like you're hearing footsteps. It does get a bit creepy. So that podcast is hosted by Christine and Em. The reason it's called And That's Why We Drink is because they usually either have like a wine and a milkshake, have a bit of a chat to start with. So I actually enjoy it because it is kind of more relaxed kind of true crime and stuff, so it feels a lot more laid back and not as a bit like intense, because sometimes it can get a bit much if you especially have anxiety around that stuff. I really highly recommend those two true crime podcasts and Paranormal Activity. So I have a Harry Potter podcast as well, of course. So Potterless is also one of the first kind of podcasts I started listening to before I started branching out to more people and realising this was a big thing. So basically Potterless is about a grown man, Mike, who is reading the Harry Potter series for the first time. So it's really interesting him going through all of the books as a first reader perspective, because if you're a Harry Potter fan, you've read them many times. So it's really interesting having his take on that, and also he will go on to do like the movies and any other things like plays and stuff. So if you are a Harry Potter fan and you're really interested in kind of like, you know, hearing about the story and a different perspective on it, and also about other things related to the whole massive, huge wizarding world, then I'm sure you'll like this magical one. So I guess a bit of a kind of nerdy podcast. As you know, I'm a bit of a nerd. I like anime, I like Japanese culture, not that that's really that nerdy, but all those things you can tell by my room, Harry Potter and all that stuff. I'm a proud nerd and I'm going to stick with it. If you are an anime fan, then this podcast is going to be great for you. It is called Anime Out of Context. It's a podcast hosted by Sean and Remington, and it's basically about a friend what kind of talks his other friend into doing this podcast and watching anime. And he's not really an anime fan, he doesn't really delve into that world that much, and he kind of forces him to watch it and have an opinion on it and have a discussion. And obviously when you do that and introduce someone, you might end up liking it a bit. It's really interesting if you actually want to find out some like new anime you might want to watch, or whether there's some anime and you think actually maybe I'll skip that one, instead of scrolling through Crunchyroll for about an hour and choosing something you want to watch and realising actually that weren't for me. So it's really funny. It does make me laugh a lot, which is bad when I'm out in public and laughing to myself like a crazy person. There is some kind of like adult themes in there as well, so just a warning, there is kind of like swearing, and obviously a lot of anime has interesting themes in it. But if you are an anime lover, it's really great for just generally listening to it for a bit of a laugh, and also recommendations or maybe things that we don't need to watch. So another podcast that is not actually anime based, but it does have anime elements in it. It is Trash Taste, and I actually only just started kind of listening, watching to it. She found it through YouTube. I often have like YouTube videos on a lot in the background. Obviously I've been like kind of working from home and on my own a lot and not socialising, so it's nice to kind of like hear voices and fill in the silence that is being very prominent in the world lately. So you can actually listen to the podcast on Spotify or any other app, or you can watch it on YouTube if you're a visual person and you like to see the people actually talking, or both if you want to kind of like go back to podcasts that you really enjoyed and listen to it whilst you're on a go and then continue it when you're at home. So it's a really funny podcast. It is by 3 YouTubers and they often have like guests in and stuff, which is really interesting. It adds another element to it. And the 3 hosts for this podcast are actually YouTubers, so if you're a fan of any of their work, then you probably will enjoy this podcast too. So there's Connor from CDogVA, there is Joey, the anime man, and there's Gant from Gig UK, I think I'm pronouncing that right. And they basically just have a conversation with each other and bring in guests, and they'll talk about anime, Japanese culture, what it's like to be a YouTuber, and just like funny stories and stuff. There's usually alcohol involved, so if you feel like you're not getting out lately to the pub or something, you can have a drink, and then it's like a VR pub with your friends where you just chat absolute crap basically and get drunk. So this is the last podcast I'm going to suggest, so if you have any recommendations then I'll leave them down below and we can all check them out. And also if you would like me to kind of like do this as a regular thing of any like podcasts or anything like that, then let me know, give this video a thumbs up and I will do some more. So as I was saying, the last one is Abroad in Japan. It's actually a YouTube channel as well. It is hosted by Chris Broad, who has the YouTube channel Abroad in Japan, and also Pete Donaldson. It's about about Japanese culture, some stories, they might have some reader stories in there, and it's just really interesting finding out kind of like the less known stories about Japan and just a general chatter about it. So if you're a bit like me and you've either been to Japan or you love the culture or you're interested in moving there or just fascinated by Japanese culture, then I really recommend it. It's very funny as well, so if you need cheering up, it's a good one to listen to. And I'll also link Chris's YouTube channel down below as well, because he does a lot of documentary kind of videos about Japan, and it's really interesting and they're very high quality, so it's kind of like watching a documentary on Netflix when you watch his videos. So that is all my recommendations of my podcast. I hope they will help you survive whatever 2021 is going to throw at us. Even if the world goes back to normal, they're really handy to listen to if you're getting the train, if you're getting the bus, commuting in the car, or if you're just having a nice walk in the summer. Hopefully the sun comes out. So I hope you enjoyed this short kind of little video just to show my face and get back into actually creating some content. I hope you enjoyed it. I will also leave all my socials down below as well, which I'm a bit more regular on, mainly Instagram, if you want to check any of them out, as well as everyone else I've listed down below. So I hope you have a great day, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.